Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. We're going to take a couple episodes here and just kind of focus on flipping and renovations. And I got some of the best in the business here in Indianapolis on here joining me today. I'm ready to just kind of pick their brain, put them on the spot a little bit about what are some good things that are going on here in Indianapolis and how to make these projects really happen for themselves and for their investors that they're working with and stuff. So I got Darren Finney, I got Dave Short, and Patrick Grayson joining me. How's it going, fellas? Thanks a lot for jumping on here, man.
Great.
Awesome.
Good. Thanks for having us, Brian.
Yeah, no problem. So these guys are they've been on the podcast before. They've been brought a lot of value. So I really appreciate them and just their insights that they can bring to the Indianapolis market and to all the investors out there. So real quick, let's just kind of go around the horn real quick and just tell us a little bit about kind of what you're doing with kind of within your business of how many projects if you can tell me a little bit about kind of maybe how many projects you've done, how many years you've been kind of flipping, and that kind of stuff. Just give us a little background of your, like I said, these episodes we're going to kind of focus on flipping and renovations a little bit. So kind of just give us your expertise or kind of your quick little resume on why you're on here talking about what's going on here in Indianapolis. So Darren, let's start with you, man.
Sure. Thanks, man. Hey, so I've been doing this for about 5 years now. I guess I kind of flubbed around until I took Dave's class, probably 4 years ago now. But yeah, man, like I'm kind of small and I like it that way.
Yeah.
Forcing myself to do more of like a lifestyle kind of thing. So I only market to the leads that I really want and, like only the volume that I really want so that I can maintain my ability to live my life the way I want to. So for me, it's more about that than it is like just crushing through a bunch of houses and trying to make as much money as possible because I don't need a lot of money to survive. And yeah, I'm looking for the lifestyle more than anything else. So that's kind of where I'm at, man.
Love it. Love it. Patrick, how about you?
Yeah. I'm going to actually quickly say I'm in a public space in the Irvington Event Center. So I'll plug that, the co-working space here. So this is where I get the best internet. But let's see, I've been full-time investing for a little over 4 years now in Indianapolis. We started primarily just doing flips, kind of a couple at a time. That ramped up. I think we capped out at about 12 a year that we were doing of our own flips. About that time, I started getting a little leery about the market. So we actually kicked off our general contracting company. So we still do a lot of work in and around Indianapolis. I just looked up the other day. So far in 2021, we've worked on 35 different properties.
Awesome.
Some of those are huge $300,000 rehabs. Some of those are, $8,000 tenant turns. But so we're very busy with that. We still do probably 6 or 8 flips a year. And those flips that we're doing ourselves are actual leads that we're marketing. We're finding them, taking them down directly from other investors or the current homeowners and flipping them. So that's kind of what we're up to. We have a handful of rentals. We've always dabbled a little bit in the rental thing. It's just never been our foray. So
yeah, awesome, man. I appreciate your the expertise you bring and your insights, man. So
yeah.
Dave, how about you?
I've been doing it probably full time for 10, 12 years, and we'll probably do 25 projects this year on our flipping side. I'm spending a lot of time operating and building up our event center, Cyria's headquarters. So we're devoting more and more time to that and helping other flippers out in the business. So we've got 8 projects going right now, and which is a lot for us. And I think we've closed 11 so far this year. So we should hit our targets.
That's great, man. Dave, I want to start with you on this question of just kind of, I know this is always kind of what people want to know a little bit of, and I know you've done a little bit of everything from some buy and holds, and you still do a little bit of everything. You do some note investing. You got the Irvington Event Center co-working space that you're working with now, and you're, kind of, I feel like you're always dabbling in a little bit of something. But one of your expertise really comes from flipping properties. So why do you think that's such a great strategy for investors out there? For them, whether to start doing or to grow that into a business or just continue doing here in Indianapolis? Why is flipping such a great model?
Well, I like flipping I like to see the end project, but the beauty with flipping, it lets you create, 3-4 businesses within it. And because we can, just buy something, and if we have too much on our plate at a given time, we can wholesale it out and make a modest profit. Or we can take step 2 and just gut it, get it ready to sell, and just do minor work that makes it a little bit easier for an investor to take hold and become a rental. And 3, we can do a full flip with the house, and 4, we can create mortgages with the product if it lends itself to that strategy. So I like flipping because it can be 4 businesses in one, depending on what you decide to do with that house. Let you do a little more volume, knowing that you don't have to take every project to the end to make some, to generate some income.
Yeah. So I love that, of just kind of that, kind of everybody puts that in a bucket of like, oh, I can either be a flipper, I can be a buy and hold investor, but there's so many different strategies. Of Dave's just talking about flipping itself, of like, hey, they had 4 different exit strategies just within that and stuff. So Darren, for you, I know you went through Dave's class, and you've listened to him, you've picked his brain quite a bit and things like that. So as you started, 5 years ago doing this, and now you're working up to multiple projects, kind of within a year, and you're kind of trying to build that lifestyle thing. Why does that strategy work for you to build that lifestyle kind of, investment strategy that you want?
Sure. So for me, like, it took me probably until last year to really figure out what I was doing, like why I was doing it,
Yeah.
because everybody always talks about the big why or whatever. And so it kind of took me a while, because I was just chasing, every lead that came out, no matter where it was at in the city or whatever. And then when I started really thinking about it, like, I like to flip a house because I like the challenge of, like, what can I do with this room, or what can I do with this room? How can I make this work? And then trying to figure out what's going to appeal the most to the end buyer. I mean, definitely what all the stuff that Dave said is 100% accurate. Just for me personally, I'm going after it for a different reason. However, that said, I have started to branch out this year into like an out-of-state project, and we're trying to get some Airbnbs and stuff like that. So,
Nice.
obviously the passive income is the secret to wealth. But I think I'll continue to flip houses just because I like to do it, so.
Yeah. So Patrick, for you, I know you mentioned that you guys have been flipping on your own for a while for your own projects and stuff like that. And now you're also doing some projects for other people. You got your project management company, your GC company, and doing those projects for other people. And you've done, $8,000 turns up to $300,000 renovations and stuff like that. So I just want to pick your brain first. Like, what do you enjoy doing with that? Would you rather take on that, like, hey, just that quick little flip, or would you rather do that, like, that huge project you see just huge gains in? You're not gains like monetarily, but just like the big turn that you see within the property itself.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's a question I ask myself sometimes. Like,
depends on the project, probably, right?
Yeah. A lot of people, the biggest job we've ever had that we're like almost halfway through right now is just about $350,000 on the rehab. So, like, that just comes with a whole different set of issues and lots of chances for things to go wrong, all that stuff. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, in the time and effort that it's taken to do a $350,000 rehab, we could have done 10, small $35,000 rehabs. So it's, as a business owner, you can go back and forth and ask yourself questions like that all day, trying to find out where you're best suited. I do love to see the big, 150 plus rehabs happen. Yeah. Like, there's something super gratifying about seeing a house that this one big job. It's over in Windsor Park. I remember the first year that I lived in Indiana or in Indy. I remember driving by that thing like every week, because we had a bunch of properties over on the Near East Side, and I would drive past this thing and I was always like, who on earth is working on that house? Like, I drove past it 100 times, and then one day I got the phone call, and it was the owner of that building, and so we ended up taking it over. But it was just really cool to see, where it started, how they demoed, and we're actually putting siding up on it this week, and it looks amazing. Like
That's
it's the
awesome.
coolest transformation. But you know, we do a lot of the sub $30,000 remodels too, where it's a tenant rehab or just a quick tenant turn, and you know, those are nice. They certainly pay the bills, and it's cool knowing that, you know, we're going to come in here, we're going to make this place nicer. Someone's going to move in and make this more of a home, and I always get a little, you know, gratification out of just thinking about that. Taking something that was boarded up, or you know, no one could live in it, or there's, you know, we've done our fair share of cat pee houses, right, where the whole house just smells awful. You go in there, tear it out, redo it, and to know that that's going to go in the hands of somebody new is kind of cool to watch. So yeah.
Awesome. Patrick, as you're doing these projects for people and stuff like that, and people are bringing you on to, you know, flip or turn some properties for them, what are some of the, like, maybe the number one misconception that people have of like, oh, I'm going to send Patrick's crew over here and they're going to be able to get in and do this, and it's going to be this amount or whatever. What's one of those big misconceptions that people that are flipping or want to do flips that they have about Indianapolis?
Where do I start?
Yeah.
I would say probably one of the biggest issues we've found ourselves facing a lot is people think that you know, even if they have myself, a home inspector, and a property manager all go walk through a property and come up with a scope of work, that's all it's going to be. I think I've yet really to ever do an actual rehab on a job and we stuck the scope. Yeah. You're always gonna, you know, discover an outlet that doesn't work, or something that's supposed to be GFI protected, but there's no ground on that wire. There will always be more. And sometimes I'm just surprised that, you know, maybe I'm taking it for granted because we've done a bunch of rehabs, but when people go, well, I don't have the money to do that. And I'm like, well, did you really think we were going to be able to tear a wall down and not have any problems? Right. So we, you know, on the GC side, we do our best to communicate that, like, hey, make sure you keep a little extra money, 10, 15% tucked away, contingency. If we don't spend it, great. Right. But count on spending it. Yeah. So that's probably one of the issues that we find ourselves dealing with quite often.
Yeah. Darren, how about that same question for you, as you're getting in there and kind of doing this stuff, not necessarily doing the work on your own, but you're kind of planning for these projects of like, oh, this is how I think this is my estimated, you know, rehab budget, and here's what I'm going to do and things like that. What are some of those misconceptions you've kind of had for yourself of like, oh man, I'm going into this project and all of a sudden it turns into something else?
Yeah. Well, so, you know, kind of what Patrick was saying too, and he was alluding to it, I think, without even realizing it. Like, if you look at some of these Facebook groups that we're all in, and you see, like, it's daily that people are like, hey, I need a like, I saw this one today, like, I need a high-end contractor for a high-end flip that I'm doing. I'm like, so how did you, if you didn't know that contractor before you bought that house, how did you know how much rehab budget to do? You know, like, you don't, because Patrick's company costs one price, and I might have another company that costs a different price, and maybe I need Patrick's level of quality, but all I can afford is this other guy over here because I bought the house wrong. So, I mean, if you don't like pre-establish relationships with contractors, I don't know how you could possibly bid on a house properly to be able to make money and not lose money.
Right.
So I think that's probably my best answer to your question.
Right. Yeah. No, don't necessarily put the you know, what is it, the egg before the chicken, and the chicken before the egg, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The cart before the horse or something.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
Dave, how about you? Go ahead.
If I can tag along that, because on the GC side, we run into this all the time as well, is, well, I've got a guy that can do it for 20,000. And I'm like, cool, do it. Great.
Awesome. Go for it.
And then they, you know, a day later they come back and they're like, oh, well, he's too busy now. He can't get to it for the next month. Or, well, now that he actually went and walked the property, it's 30,000. Yeah. So we see that a lot as well, as it pertains to not bringing somebody in early enough that knows what they're doing. So.
Yeah. I always see that from our side too. If a guy can kind of always get that feedback, like, oh, well, the wholesaler said it was going to be like this. I'm like, no, don't go.
You can never trust the wholesaler.
Those numbers.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's your due diligence.
So, yeah, definitely. So, Dave, from your end, when you're working with a lot of students and helping them, you know, kind of learn how to flip and learn how to do that, what are some of those misconceptions that, like, as you're taking them through projects, and maybe when they come into your class or kind of do their first flip, that they don't realize, maybe what they're going to get into.
Well, we had one today. A gal's going to take my class, and I told her that, she had bought a house on market, and she got into a competitive bidding situation with people that were going to live in the house. Well, guess what? She's upside down in her flip. Because she got no information from contractors and what it would take to finish it and get it on the market. And more importantly, she didn't even know, her agent didn't even tell her what the comps are in the neighborhood and what she can sell this house for when she gets it done, even though she bought in a really strong neighborhood. So it's like, if you don't have the information and somebody you can rely on to set the pricing for you. My wife's on me all the time. I'm terrible about scope of work, getting an accurate one. And so we're trying to do better, and getting contractors in there to take a look at this project after we get it, so we can set realistic budgets. So, but yeah, it's an ongoing situation. And with our scope of work, we budget. Patrick said a few $1,000s. We budget 20% now for stuff that we're missing before we make offers on the house.
Yeah. So I think it's a big thing too that I see with a lot of people that want to do the renovations or do the flips, is like sometimes they just get antsy and just want a project, and they're going to end up buying something that they haven't taken the due diligence time to do, or they've overpaid for because they just want something to work on and things. I think that's always tough. I always like to say is like, no deal is better than a bad deal. So it's always better to kind of not buy something than kind of go ahead and just get one to just to have one and do it. So, and
it's really hard to get that across to new flippers. We've got a couple right now. I'm just trying to, we're trying to walk off the ledge, because I said, look, well, I need the experience. I want it on my resume. I said, you want a loss on your resume and that you just completed a house? And I said, no, your investors are going to appreciate you more that you walk away from the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you might get into that deal and do it, and it might end up that way, but don't go in starting to think that way, right from the start of whatever. You got to go in there thinking like, hey, I can make, 25 grand on this if I do it. That's where your numbers, need to be, or however that project is. So Dave, I want to take you back to, if you can look at when you started actually flipping and kind of building this business for yourself, 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, whenever that was, what's some advice that you wish somebody would have given you back then when you were getting started?
I think, when I first started, I had a partner, and he was a money partner that wanted to learn the business. So it seemed like a good fit, and it turned out not to be a good fit. So I'm saying, if you're, we're seeing a lot of investors want to be flippers, or flippers hooking up with people that are not good fits for you. So when you pick a team, and a team may be an investor, it may be the money, it may be a contractor, you've got to be able to get along with all the people that's on your team.
Yeah.
And just because somebody brings something to you that you really need, that could cause you to lose money on your transaction. Yeah. So just, be careful who you put on your team, that they in fact will be a teammate.
Yeah, that's amazing now, as I'm, getting out and doing some coaching and consulting and stuff like that, of how many kind of business partners are actually, on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes for like core values and how they want to run their business, or what their vision is for that business and stuff like that. I'm kind of amazed by that. And it's such a big thing of kind of being on the same page with your partners, or with, whoever you're in business with, even if it is just team members that are people that are underneath you, and things. So that's something great to consider. So Darren, how about that same question to you? What's something that, 5 years ago when you started doing this, what's something you wish you could kind of give yourself advice on?
If I could look back, I'd be like, yo, man, just be patient and trust the process. So like, for instance, I passed on a house that I looked at last weekend, and I saw it come out from another wholesaler yesterday, and I probably could have made maybe 10 grand on it, but I passed on it because after I talked about it with my wife, I was like, well, how much is the stress and, my loss of sleep and things like that, how much is that worth to me? I was like, 10 grand is not that number. So,
Yeah.
Cause it wasn't a house, it wasn't in a location where I would flip it. It was just purely a wholesale deal for me. And I'm like, if I ended up, cause I'm not going to not close on it if I sign the contract with them. So
Yep.
I'm like, at the end of the day, I didn't want to own that house for 10 grand potential profit. So, yeah, man, just be patient, trust the process, stick to your rules, like set rules about what you will and won't do and where you will and won't go, and stick to it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It's kind of amazing too, is that kind of makes me think about, as you're talking about that, of kind of when you're starting off, of how much it kind of is a little bit about the money. And then as you get into it and stuff like that, it's really is about like, hey, how much is my time worth? And what is this really costing me? And was it really worth? Yeah. So Patrick, how about you? If you could go back and kind of give yourself some advice when you're getting started, man, what would that be?
Yeah, I have two, if that's okay.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
So first, and honestly, I was just having this conversation this morning with somebody, is I think people don't realize the value in networking, like in-person actual networking. Like being friends with somebody on Facebook doesn't count. But you know, the four of us all know each other from coming to events like Cyria and getting to know each other over the years. I can absolutely see a correlation between the success in my investing as it relates to my network.
Yeah.
So like, don't miss that easy, low-hanging fruit part of all of this is show up to the free meetings, you know, ask questions online, whatever. The bigger and better your network, the better your investing is going to be. And then what I think Dave mentioned earlier is having multiple exit strategies, which is huge. And that's one of the benefits of real estate, is you can do kind of anything as long as you're finding a good enough deal. You know, we don't buy anything now that you know, usually the primary exit strategy is to flip it and sell it, but it also has to check out as a rental. Because I'm always, you know, I'm never opposed to expanding a rental portfolio either. So that way, if, you know, something crazy happens politically, or, you know, the housing market's great right now, but it won't always be, having multiple exit strategies and understanding those numbers up front when you buy the deal. You know, this is how much money I can put into it. Can I split the difference between doing like a medium or higher end flip while keeping it as a potential rental, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But knowing how those different exit strategies could unfold is certainly valuable.
Yeah, that's great advice. Of that same thing, just this morning I was having a conversation with somebody of like, that he's going through that, of like, hey, what does he want to, what does he want to do with it? Does he want to do that high end flip, or does he want to do that quick little thing, or does he want to keep it and hold it? Like, do you have multiple exit strategies within that? Because something's going to happen with one of your projects and you're going to need to change course at some point and stuff. And knowing that going in is huge. So awesome
so
stuff.
Darren mentioned like enjoying it, right? And not
Yep.
losing sleep over deals and that sort of thing, which is, it might be one of those things that you don't realize the value of that until you've had to gone through it. But we had a deal recently and we bought it, and after we closed on it and actually purchased it, I sat down with my two managers and I'm like, this is the best deal. Like, I will never lose sleep over this. We bought it at a great price. Now we just need to we can decide what we want to do with it, because we can clean it out and wholesale it. We can flip it. We can keep it as a rental. Like, it's so gratifying to find deals like that.
Yeah. So, when it fits right into that, oh, hey, this is our buy box. It fits right into here. We can do multiple things with it. Like that's the best feeling ever, when you're like, man, like you said, I don't have to lose sleep over it. I'll do this all day long. Why can't I get 10 deals like this tomorrow? And, you know, that kind of thing. So awesome. So we're going to do is we kind of wrap up this episode here. I want to do a quick little rapid fire on, if you guys can give me, what neighborhood in Indianapolis would you love to just turn around and get a flip in tomorrow? And then what neighborhood would you kind of like cringe at, like, nope, not working in that neighborhood? So kind of a little rapid fire right there. So what neighborhood would you love to be able to flip in? Like, you know, no question about it. Like, yep, get me in here. I'll do one tomorrow. In that neighborhood of like, I'll stay away from that one for right now. So Darren, let's start with you on this.
Carmel, yes. I'm going to say Riverside, no.
Yeah. So no, you're not on the Riverside train yet?
I'm not on most of the Marion County train, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's just not my jam, man.
Yeah.
He said
So,
what neighborhood, not what, not what zip code.
all right. So Riverside, that makes sense. So it's amazing. That's one that always gets popped up of like, hey, what do people, can you flip there? Can you not? And stuff like that. But this comes back to like Darren knows his buy box. Like, where does he want to work? Where does he want to do? So Dave, how about you? What's that neighborhood that you want to flip in tomorrow, and which one do you want to stay away from?
And the one I flip in tomorrow is normally most of Washington Township is going to be a yes for me. The Butler Tarkingtons, anywhere especially in the Washington Township school system. The no's are Twin Air. I didn't say Riverside because Darren said it first, but Twin Air would be an area that I'm not ready for yet.
Yeah,
I don't want to be the first one. I don't want to be the first ones in, even though the price of entry is fairly low, and that is where the attraction's at for a lot of newbies.
You look at that neighborhood. I think that's such an enticing neighborhood right there. Is Twin Air, because it's so close to everything. It looks like it's got that so much potential, but same thing too. Do you want to be that first person in there and to kind of blaze the trail when you don't really know what's going to happen next? So something to be cognizant of. So great tip there.
Yep.
Pat, how about you?
So I would love to buy a flip today on the near west side, like I'm not great with the neighborhood names, but like King Commons area. We did a couple over there last year, and all of them were just slam dunks. I would love to buy more over there. The area that I wouldn't touch would be Fountain Square or Bates Hendricks.
Yeah,
just too much competition. Not what I'm into.
Yeah. So that's something that like they'd be the opposite for a lot of people, where they say like, hey, Fountain Square, Bates Hendricks, I'll do one tomorrow. Like they want to be in there, but do you know what that all takes? It's really competitive, and it's tough like that too. I feel like the buyers in that area too, like they want specific things. Like they'll walk away from a property just because it doesn't have the right color or something like that. So something to be careful of. So guys, awesome stuff. I really appreciate everything on this episode. We're going to come back with episode number 2 with these guys, and we're going to dig into a little bit more of not necessarily some of this like getting started advice stuff, but really kind of like when you want to build a business and how to operate a business when you are doing some flipping and some renovations. So with that, that's a wrap for this episode of the Indy Investor Pod, and we'll see you guys next time.